He looked me dead in the eye, adjusted his tie in the mirror, and told me that sleeping with another woman was going to be good for us. Believe it or not, my husband Mark actually thought I was going to be okay with it. He thought I was such a desperate, spineless doormat that I would just smile, wave him off, and have a hot dinner waiting for him when he came back from his little adventure. Honey, let me tell you right now, he may have been right about thinking that variety is the spice of life, but he screwed the hell up thinking he could treat me like a side character in his own life story. We had been together since college. I built him up. I supported him when he was a broke intern. I paid the rent when he wanted to find himself. And I stood by him while he climbed the corporate ladder. I was his rock. And up until last Tuesday, I had no reason to believe I wasn't the only woman in his universe. It started on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the middle of a conference call, fighting for my life with a vendor who couldn't tell the difference between a spreadsheet and a coloring book when my cell rang. It was a local number, but not one I had saved. Usually, I let those go straight to voicemail because if it's important, they'll leave a message. And if it's a scammer trying to sell me an extended car warranty, I don't have the patience to not scream at them. But something in my gut, call it intuition, call it the universe whispering in my ear, told me to pick up. I muted my computer mic and answered, "This is Lena." There was a pause on the other end, just long enough to make me nervous. Then, a man's voice, low and hesitant. "Hi, Lena. My name is Greg. I work with your husband, Mark. I don't really know how to say this." My stomach dropped through the floor. The first thing you think is accident. "Is he okay? Was there a crash?" No, he's physically fine," Greg said quickly. "But honestly, Lena, I think it's more about what I can do for you. I have some information about Mark that you need to know. Are you available to meet me around 1 today?" My blood ran cold. The tone wasn't "your husband is hurt," it was "your husband is a dirtbag." "What kind of information, Greg? If this is some office prank, I am not in the mood." "It's not a joke," he said, and I could hear the stress in his voice. "He doesn't know I'm calling. Listen, meet me, and you might be able to stop your husband from making a massive mistake. I'll be at The Grind, the coffee shop on 4th at 1. I'm wearing a gray hoodie. Please, Lena." He hung up. I sat there in my home office, staring at the black screen of my phone, mouthing WTF. Some random guy just told me I might be able to stop my husband from doing something catastrophic. My mind started racing. Gambling debts? Drugs? Or the classic, the cliche, the one thing I swore Mark would never do. I canceled my afternoon meetings. I told my boss I had a family emergency, which technically wasn't a lie. At 1 p.m. sharp, I was standing outside The Grind. I saw him immediately. Gray hoodie, looking nervous, tapping his foot. I walked up to him. "You're Greg?" He jumped a little. "Yeah, you're Lena. Wow, he really doesn't deserve you." "Let's skip the flattery," I said, crossing my arms. "Talk, now." We walked toward a park bench to get away from the crowd. Greg took a deep breath. "I've been working with Mark for about 6 months in the sales division. Almost immediately, I started hearing rumors about him and the new logistics coordinator, Sarah. I didn't want to believe it because Mark talks about you all the time. But then I started seeing it. I felt like I was going to throw up." "Seeing what exactly?" "Lunch together every day," Greg said, "but not work lunches. Flirting, touching, whispering. But Today was the breaking point. Everyone in the office overheard them. They're planning to go out tomorrow night. They booked a room at the Radisson downtown. They were laughing about it, Lena, laughing about how they're going to have a fancy dinner, go dancing, and then spend the night together. I felt the tears pricking my eyes, but I forced them back. Anger was replacing the shock. "He's coming home to me every night. How does he think he's going to pull this off?" "That's the worst part," Greg said, looking down at his sneakers. "I heard him tell her that he's just going to tell you the truth. He literally said, 'Lena loves me too much to leave. She'll understand that I have needs.' He thinks you're going to give him permission. He thinks you're a pushover." "He called me a pushover?" "He said you were safe, that you'd never blow up the marriage over one night of fun." Greg looked up at me, his eyes full of pity, which made me want to scream. "I went through this with my ex-wife. She gaslit me for years. I lost my house, my dog, my dignity. I promised myself if I ever saw it happening to someone else, I'd speak up. I'm sorry, Lena." I stood there shaking, not from sadness, but from pure, unadulterated rage. My husband, the man whose socks I pick up, whose ego I stroke daily, was planning to ask me for a hall pass to cheat on me with a coworker named Sarah. banking on the fact that I was too pathetic to say no. If you are already shook by the audacity of this man, hit that like button right now because, honey, I haven't even gotten to the part where I ruin his entire life. So, what do? Do you go home and scream? Do you burn his clothes on the lawn? I decided to be proactive. If Mark wanted to play games, I was going to win the championship. I thanked Greg and told him to keep his head down. Then I sat in my car and Googled Private Investigator Chicago. I found a guy with 5 stars named Vance. I called him, drove straight to his office, and paid a retainer that cost more than my first car. Vance was all business. You want photos, audio, video? I want everything, I told him. If he sneezes in her direction, I want it in 4K resolution. I want to know what they eat, what they drink, and exactly when they go up to that room. By the time I got home, I was vibrating with anxiety. I had to pretend everything was normal. I had to cook dinner. I had to ask him how his day was. When Mark walked in, he gave me a quick peck on the cheek. Hey, babe, dinner smells great. I watched him eat his lasagna, knowing he was probably texting Sarah under the table. I studied his face. He didn't look guilty. He looked excited. He looked like a kid on Christmas Eve, except his present was blowing up our marriage. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I lay next to him, listening to him snore, visualizing exactly how I was going to destroy him. The next morning, Friday, he was whistling while he got dressed. He put on his lucky suit, the blue one I bought him for our anniversary. The disrespect was astronomical. He left for work, and I went into overdrive. I called my lawyer, a shark of a woman named Jessica, who had handled my business contracts. When I told her the situation, she laughed, a cold, terrifying laugh. Oh, honey, she said, if he's stupid enough to do this, we're going to take him for everything but his dental fillings. Do not let him back in that house tonight. I spent the afternoon packing. And when I say packing, I don't mean neatly folding his clothes. I mean, I took trash bags, the heavy-duty contractor kind, and I shoveled his life into them. His suits, bagged. His PlayStation, bagged. His collection of vintage sneakers, tossed in a heap. I stripped the bed. I sanitized the bathroom. I scrubbed his existence out of my sanctuary. I hauled everything into the garage, backed his car out onto the street, and piled the bags onto his driver's seat. I threw his spare keys on top of the pile. Then I sat in the living room with a glass of the most expensive wine we owned, and I waited. At 5:30 p.m., the door opened. Mark walked in, but he wasn't wearing his work clothes. He had changed. He was wearing a new shirt, cologne that I didn't recognize, and he was carrying an overnight bag. Hey, he said, breezing past me like he hadn't just signed his own death warrant. You look nice. I took a slow sip of wine. Where are you going, Mark? He stopped, turned, and gave me this condescending smile. Okay, so don't freak out. But Sarah from work, she's been having a rough time, and we've really connected. We decided we're going to go out tonight, grab a nice dinner, maybe go dancing. I stared at him. And the bag? Well, he shrugged like he was explaining simple math to a toddler. We're going to get a hotel room just for the night. Lena, look, you and I, we're solid. But I need a little excitement, a little variety. I figured since you love me, you'd want me to be happy. It's just physical. I'll be back tomorrow by noon and we can watch movies. The silence in the room was deafening. He actually said it. He said the quiet part out loud. You're going to a hotel to sleep with another woman, I stated, my voice dead calm. And you think I'm going to sit here and wait for you? It's not a big deal, babe. He laughed, checking his watch. Don't be insecure. It's just sex. It might even teach me a few tricks to use on you later. I stood up. Mark, if you walk out that door, we are done. I am not open to an open marriage. I am not okay with this. If you leave, do not come back. A car horn honked outside. That's her, he said, grabbing his bag. Stop being dramatic, Lena. You're just emotional right now. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't wait up. He tried to kiss my forehead. I dodged it. I'm serious, Mark. If you get in that car, you are homeless. He rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd detach. You'd never kick me out. You need me. See you tomorrow, babe. He walked out. He got into Sarah's car. I watched from the window as they drove off. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked to the security panel and changed the alarm code. I called the locksmith I had on standby. Yes, I plan ahead and had the locks changed within the hour. I drank the rest of the bottle of wine. I watched a rom-com. I slept like a baby. The next day, Saturday, around 12:30 p.m., I was sitting on the couch reading a book when I heard a car pull up. Then the sound of a key scratching in the lock. Scratch, scratch, jiggle. Then the doorbell. Once, twice. Then a heavy pounding. I opened the door, leaving the security chain on. Mark was standing there looking hungover and disheveled. Lena, what the hell? My key isn't working. And why is my car on the street filled with garbage bags? I smiled, a sweet, venomous smile. Because you don't live here anymore, Mark, and those aren't garbage bags, that's your wardrobe. I didn't want it cluttering up my garage. Are you insane? He shouted, pushing against the door. Let me in. This is my house. Actually, I said, the deed is in my name because my credit was better when we bought it. Remember? You're trespassing. Leave or I call the cops. You can't do this over one night. I told you I was going. And I told you if you went, not to come back. Goodbye, Mark. I slammed the door. He pounded on it for 20 minutes, screaming that I was a frigid witch and a psycho. Eventually, he left. I thought I had a moment of peace. But the drama was just getting started. 3 hours later, my phone blew up. It was Kyle, Mark's older brother. Now, let me tell you about Kyle. Kyle is everything Mark isn't. Where Mark is soft and entitled, Kyle is rugged and hardworking. He runs his own construction business. He's always been the serious one. And if I'm being honest, I've always thought Kyle was incredibly handsome, but I never acted on it because, boundaries. I answered, Hello, Kyle? Lena, what the hell's going on? His voice was booming. Mark is at my place crying his eyes out. He says you kicked him out because of a misunderstanding about a work dinner? A misunderstanding? I laughed. Is that what he told you? He said he went to dinner with a colleague and you went psycho and threw his stuff on the street. Look, I know Mark can be an idiot, but kicking him out, that's extreme. I'm coming over to help you guys mediate this. Kyle, don't. I'm 10 minutes away. Click, great. Now I had to deal with the brother. Now I had to. Kyle showed up looking furious. He stormed past me into the living room. Where is he? Wait, he's not here. Lena, you have to let him back in. You can't end a marriage over a dinner. Sit down, Kyle, I said, pointing to the armchair. I don't want to sit. I want to know why my brother is homeless. Did he tell you who the colleague was? I asked, pouring myself a glass of water. Did he tell you about the hotel room? Kyle paused. He said they stayed at a hotel because they had too much to drink and didn't want to drive. Responsible. Responsible, I repeated. Kyle, he told me to my face that he was going to sleep with her because he wanted variety. He asked for a hall pass. I said no. He went anyway. Kyle looked skeptical. Mark wouldn't do that. He worships you. Does he? I picked up my iPad. My PI Vance had already uploaded the footage to a secure cloud folder. Watch this. I pressed play. The video showed Mark and Sarah outside the hotel, not stumbling drunk, perfectly sober. They were making out against the valet stand. Mark's hands were, well, let's just say they weren't in a colleague zone. They walked into the lobby, Mark checked in, and he slapped Sarah on the rear end as they got into the elevator. Kyle watched the whole thing in silence. His face went from angry to pale to bright red. He handed the iPad back to me. He ran a hand through his hair. That son of a boo. Yeah, I said. He looked me in the eye and lied, Kyle muttered. He swore on our mother's grave nothing happened. There's more, I said. But I think you get the point. Kyle sank onto the sofa. I feel like an idiot coming here to defend him. I'm sorry, Lena. I had no idea. Make sure you're subscribed because the update I'm about to drop regarding the legal battle is going to make you scream. The fallout was swift. I filed for divorce on Monday. Mark was served at work. Apparently, he caused a scene, crying in the break room until security had to escort him out. 2 weeks later, we had a preliminary meeting with the lawyers. Mark showed up looking like he hadn't showered in days. He had the audacity to bring Kyle for moral support. I walked in with my lawyer, Jessica. Mark's lawyer, a cheap suit named Barry, started talking. My client asserts that while he did spend the night at a hotel, no adultery occurred. They were intoxicated and fell asleep. Therefore, there are no grounds for an at-fault divorce, and he wants half the house and spousal support. I looked at Mark. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Spousal support? I asked. You want me to pay you? I've become accustomed to a certain lifestyle, Mark mumbled. Jessica, my lawyer, smiled. So the story is nothing happened? Correct, Mark said, gaining a little confidence. We passed out. I realized my mistake the next morning. Nothing physical happened. I looked at Kyle. Kyle was sitting in the corner, arms crossed, staring at his brother with pure disgust. Okay, Jessica said. Let's play the tape from inside the room. Mark's head snapped up. What? See, Vance is worth every penny. He had managed to get audio from the room next door and video from the hallway. We played the hallway footage first. Mark and Sarah stumbling into the room at 8:00 p.m. Then we played the audio. It was graphic. I won't repeat it here, but let's just say there was a lot of enthusiastic consent and very specific compliments about Sarah's anatomy compared to mine. Mark turned ghost white. Turn it off, he whispered. I think we're done here, Jessica said, closing her laptop. We'll be taking the house, the cars, and you'll be lucky if you leave with your dignity. Mark ran out of the room. Kyle stayed behind. He walked up to me as I was packing my bag. I can't believe he tried to lie about that in court. He's dead to me. He's desperate, I said. He knows he messed up the best thing he ever had. Kyle looked at me, really looked at me. He really did. You look incredible, by the way. Divorce suits you. I felt a blush creeping up my neck. Thanks, Kyle. That means a lot. I'm going to head over to your place later to help you move those heavy boxes you mentioned, he said, his voice dropping an octave. If that's okay? That would be great, I said. That night, Kyle came over. He moved the boxes of Mark's remaining junk into a donation pile. We ordered pizza. We drank wine. We sat on the floor of the living room laughing about how pathetic Mark was. The laughter died down. The air got heavy. I've always been jealous of him, Kyle said softly, looking at his wine glass. Not because of the job or the car, but because he had you. I never understood how he pulled it off. He didn't know what he had, I whispered. Kyle looked up. I would know. He leaned in. I didn't pull away. Let me tell you, the difference between a boy and a man is vast. Mark was a boy. Kyle is a man. Update 1. 2 weeks later, Mark is living in a studio apartment above a bowling alley. Sarah dumped him the moment she realized he wasn't going to get a big divorce settlement. Apparently, the thrill is gone when you have to pay your own bills. Kyle and I have been seeing each other every day. We haven't told the family yet, but honestly, I don't care what they think. Update 2. The confrontation Mark showed up at the house yesterday to pick up his mail. Kyle's truck was in the driveway. Mark walked in, I hadn't locked the door yet, and saw Kyle sitting at the kitchen island, drinking coffee in his boxers. The look on Mark's face, priceless. Kyle, what are you doing here? Kyle didn't even flinch. He took a sip of coffee. I'm home, Mark. Lena and I are together. You can't do that. That's my wife. That's my brother. Mark started hyperventilating. Ex-wife, I corrected, walking in from the other room. And you lost the right to call him brother when you lied to his face. Mark tried to swing at Kyle. It was pathetic. Kyle caught his fist, twisted his arm behind his back, and marched him to the front door. Don't come back without a court order, Kyle said and shoved him out. Final update, the karma. The divorce was finalized yesterday. I got the house. I got my savings. Mark got his debt and a leased Honda Civic. Kyle and I are planning a trip to Italy next month. We're going to the same hotel Mark and I went to on our honeymoon just to be petty. And you know what? I've never been happier. Mark thought he could have his cake and eat it too. Instead, he choked on the crumbs and I'm enjoying the whole bakery with the better version of him. So let me ask you guys this. Am I the a-hole for dating his brother, or is this just the sweetest case of karma you've ever heard? Let me know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more tea.